As we said, policy is really a driver. And that's why in end of 2020 and 2021, even if EARSC already had an activity on the policy side, obviously, we considered that it was really crucial to strengthen the capabilities. And we discussed within the board, and we developed several actions. The policy observatory was created, and Dolphin is leading it. In the same time, Agnieszka Lukaszczyk, which was director of EARSC at this time, proposed to the board to convert a working group in order to create a working group dedicated to Green Deal. And this is what will drive, in fact, the next session that we will have all together. Dr. Agnieszka Lukaszczyk is Vice President for Government Affairs, EMEA, a Polish and American national who worked at the European Commission, Directorate General for Internal Market Industry, Entrepreneurship and SMEs, Space Data for Societal Challenges on Growth Unit. She also worked at the Directorate General for Enterprise and Industry, Space Policy and Research Unit. She is chairing currently the Green Deal Working Group, which is, I would say, a pepite at EARSC. This is a real asset. When we created this working group, a lot of companies say we want to be part of it. It will trigger a lot of changes in the association, stimulate their interaction between EARSC members, the association as such, and NDGs and Committee of Users. So thank you to all the contributors. Agnieszka, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you so much. There's a lot of light in my eyes. Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day so far and that you are excited about this conference. I don't know about you, but when I come to these sort of conferences, I always kind of have a goal in mind. So have you thought about what your goal for this conference is? Mine is that it's not gonna be just another blah, 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 but we're actually going to come up with some recommendations or some potential solutions or partnerships because these topics are extremely important. So why engaging in a working group on European Green Deal? Well, there are a couple of reasons, but let me tell you a little anecdote from the other day because I think that puts things into perspective. I was taking an Uber and I was stuck in traffic and the air conditioning in that Uber was not working. It was extremely, extremely hot and the guy was complaining a lot, the driver, about how hot it is, that this is not normal, that this is not, you know, the Belgian weather, and this is not sustainable. So while we're talking about it, and because we're stuck in the traffic, we're making a small talk, and he's asking me, so what do you do for a living? And I told him I work in the space sector. And he like looked in the mirror, and he's like, space sector, what are you like, chasing aliens? And I said, well, not really. I work actually in a satellite business. And then he was like, oh, you know, satellites, people are spending money on these things, but you know how much energy costs right now, the inflation, we have so many problems, the war in Ukraine, we just came out of the pandemic, and people, instead of focusing on important things, they're spending money on these flashy toys like satellites. And that just made me think, the awareness is just not there. So I asked him, okay, well, let's imagine, if you think those are useless toys, let's imagine we're gonna turn off those toys completely for 24 hours. I wouldn't say a week, but let's say 24 hours. What do you think is gonna happen? Do you think you're gonna realize that it's, you know, that these satellites are not working? He was like, I don't care. He's like, you know, I don't think so. And so then I started listing things that actually his life was depending on, that depended on those satellites. You know, it's like, you know, look, you're actually using GPS right now, right? To get me to my destination. You probably checked the weather this morning. You're probably doing bank transactions. You are probably ordering things, you know, so that are being shipped from somewhere. You are probably taking planes from time to time, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we started getting into these conversations. And Why am I telling you this? Because we do a lot of very exciting things in this sector, which is not so obvious to the rest of the world, to the rest of the community. And the European Green Deal is an area where we can really have a huge impact. We have a planet that's saying that you can't manage what you cannot measure. You know, the European Green Deal has certain goals, certain targets, and our technology can really help them to, first of all, get to that, to meet those targets, meet those goals, but also to monitor the change. We are not the full solution, but we are part of the solution, an important part of the solution. So what is important for us is not to just talk to each other, which we have a tendency to do, but step outside of the box and actually talk to those who make those decisions, who actually are there in the field, who are the users, who are the decision makers, who are the people that are impacted by certain decisions. European Green Deal, it's one of the top 2 priorities of the current commission. Hopefully, it's going to be also a priority for the next commission. It has really, it's pioneering something extraordinary that is not happening anywhere else in the world. The US is looking at Europe to actually have a similar scheme in the US. Other countries are looking into Europe. We are taking a leadership, and our sector can really help to push this forward. So this is why I thought it would be extremely important that we start this working group, that we put all of our heads together and start thinking about solutions and start thinking about what can we do as a sector, as a community, as an ecosystem, to really play a role. Because as you know, these big global challenges are not going to be solved by just governments. They're going to be solved by governments, of course, by the industry, by the civil society, by you and I, how we make our everyday choices. This is a really collective work, and we really have to work on this together. So we advertised internally at EARSC a creation of this working group. As Emmanuel said, there was a lot of interest, which is great. It shows that your heart is in the right place, that you really want to make a difference and make an impact. But because Green Deal is such a large topic, we decided to divide it into subgroups, because obviously we cannot all work on everything. You know what happens when there are too many cooks in the kitchen. So we decided to create 3 subgroups for the time being. And those subgroups are, let's say, not final. What we're doing, we're mirroring what the Commission is doing in the European Green Deal. So we can be there to answer and answer questions, offer solutions, and be really aligned with what is happening on a Commission level. So right now we have 3 subgroups that you're going to hear from in just a second, in just a minute, with very capable people. So we have one on forest management, we have one on measuring carbon targets, and we have one on methane monitoring. And you will see how much work they have done. And I have to tell you one last thing before I go, that again, this working group is not just, as I said in the beginning, blah, blah, blah. We're really goal-oriented, detail-oriented. So for instance, with the forest management group, we were able to put in a forest deforestation legislation, which maybe you have heard of, a language that particularly refers to use of commercial Earth observation as one of the tools to target deforestation. And why is that? Why does that matter? Because you see, the way things work, if when governments issue tenders, for instance, they always have to have a legal base. And a lot of times, if there's no language that kind of helps them to justify why would we do tender, for instance, for EO services, it's very difficult for them to do that. But if it says in the law, in the legislation, that actually Earth observation commercial services can be used for the purposes of deforestation, all of a sudden it's obvious that they can actually use those tools and create budget lines for it. So that's number one. Number two is that we created a very, very interesting precedent, because you know what it is. It's always like this. It's the most difficult thing to put your foot in the door. But once you have this language, in a law, in a legislation, then when you're looking at future legislations, for instance, right now we're looking at nature restoration law and other ones, it's not so difficult to push that language in it because they'll be like, oh, it's already there. It's not so controversial. We should just copy and paste and use it. So those are little tiny steps. We just added sentence there, but that sentence is a game changer for our ecosystem. So we are going to continue to do that. I hope you are going to see the fruits of our work. And without further ado, I will leave the floor to those who work on these topics very hard. And Emmanuel, I'm assuming you are going to introduce the next panel. Thank you very much.